For almost 6 months, religious leaders, pastors of all denominations have asked government to reopen churches adhering to the SOPs set up by the Ministry of Health in the fight against the spread of COVID-19. The president allowed churches to reopen but maintained the 70 people mark and observe SOPs. The children in Sunday school and others would have to wait. But a visit to different churches, the news carried mixed reactions. At Namirembe Christian Fellowship of Professor Simeon Kaiwa, sorting of chairs in the observance of social distancing was ongoing. He held the first step towards church worship, which many have been missing.
First of all, I must explain to the people that emergencies have got the kind of laws which are permitted, restrictions which bypass normal laws are allowed in every country to be imposed upon people where there's a crisis, where there's an emergency. And if this kind of emergency happens when you're the president, some people like ourselves must be empathize with them, must sympathize with them. If we're in that position, what would we do? So it's very important for balance in our analysis. That we must have a balance in our analyzing of this thing.
Pastor Mondo Mujisha, who affiliates to the born-again faith, said the churches accommodate thousands and opening them to only 70 people, it's a difficult one.
President, thumbs up. Nyudewa katunda. Nzikakanye abantu bagenda kusinza mukama. First and foremost, the President of the Republic of Uganda has done great. To me, he's a real ideal. Letting people to go and worship. The Bible says 2 or 3 you gather together in my name. Will I hear from heaven? Will I come down and be amidst them? So if he has given us 70, he has already opened up a church. I appreciate that. But there is a challenge here, whereby you see the President has opened the door, looked inside, locked the door, and left the key inside.
What do you mean by that?
There are people who have 10,000 people, like Ron Makabai. There are people who have 15,000 people, like Zoe Fellowship of Prophet Elvis Mbonye. There are people who have masses, like Rubega. There are people who have like Pastor Mujingo and other men of God who have masses. We're not talking about just people. We have masses. When you talk about 70,000 people, 70 people, you're talking about just court of Anansha, the department. To me, that is a mass choir from our church. So am I going to preach just the mass choir? What will the congregation do?
We are aware, and you're all aware, that these conditions that came with the reopening, that we are only entitled to attendance of 70 people in a church. Yes, we all agree that it came with some kind of uncomforting. But the Baganda say that enyamento no kaya neri munkwao.
Politicians, on the other hand, claim that the president will need to dialogue with church leaders who gather masses to see that some are not left out.
We look at the restriction of the 70 is such a minimal number, but I think we should appreciate the first stage, and we should also request government it shouldn't take long from coming back and say now this standard of 70 has worked, let's add on.
Among the churches in Uganda that have thousands of worshippers include Zoe Ministries of Prophet Elvis Mbonye, who claim they will continue to worship according to God's guidance.
They do not describe to us how we are going to worship God. We can only worship the way the Lord tells us and how the holy books prescribe. Under no circumstance, the Bible never gave any provision for when we should suspend worship because of a disease. Suspending worship because of a disease is actually a demonstration that we do not uphold what the motto of our country says, that for God and my country.
The question remains, however, how will the law enforcers enforce the SOPs in the places of worship? Who will monitor the 70 people at every service? How will the Ministry of Health guide in case cases of COVID-19 have been identified among churchgoers, as well as finding out who is eligible to worship among the 70? Ngabo Amon reporting.